Zoning Board of Appeals, you are live on the air and you are being recorded.
Okay, thank you, Michael, and thank LTV. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the October 26th, 2021 Town of East Hampton Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. Our first public hearing this evening is canceled, and that canceled public hearing is Paul Broche at 27 Clamshell, Hands Creek Harbor, East Hampton, tax map number 300-74-5-15. So we will move on to our scheduled public hearings. The first of those is Michael O'Connell is the applicant at 97 Essex in Montauk, and pardon me, at 97 South Essex in Montauk. And this is tax map number 300-49-1-13.2, and the lot size is 9,645 square feet. And the description: to construct a two-story, 2,000 square foot building with first floor retail and deck, a second floor apartment with a porch, and an unfinished basement on a vacant parcel located on South Essex Street in downtown Montauk. The first floor proposes two dry retail uses, which are both 1,000 square feet. The second floor proposes a 1,049 square foot apartment with a roofed porch of 941 square feet. The unfinished basement consists of 1,875 square feet, and the front deck is 240 square feet. The relief sought here is a natural resources special permit pursuant to 255-4-20 of the town code to allow a two-story, 2,000 square foot building 103.7 feet from a wetland. Excuse me. A variance from 255-11-40 parking requirements to allow 5 parking spaces in the right-of-way where 13 on-site parking spaces are required. A 15-foot variance from 255-4-30 wetland setbacks to allow a 4-foot walkway, 2 parking spaces, and an ADA ramp roughly 85 feet from a wetland where a 100-foot setback is required. A 12.8-foot variance from 255-4-30 wetland setbacks to allow a septic system 137.2 feet from a wetland where 150 feet is required. The zoning district here is CB, Central Business Zone. The flood zone is X, the secret class is type 2. And good evening, council. Do we have a proper affidavit of service and posting?
We have an affidavit that the mailings were done on the 13th day of October, and that the posting was also done on the 13th day of October. So the paperwork appears to be in order.
Okay, thank you. And board member Teresa Berger is our board member on this application. If you would, Terry, with your field report, please.
Yeah, and Marco has the photos. Marco?
Yes, I have them.
Yeah,
Bringing it right now.
Got it. Okay, great. Okay. This is the first one. This property fronts 2 streets, so there are 2 postings. I'm standing on the southeast corner across the street from the property. The property there, it's unimproved. You can see a lot of vegetation, and there are invasives in there, but some vegetation. And this is will be a new retail building going up, proposed to be going up. And I'm standing on the corner. If you go next, okay, I just turned now to the west, and you could see this is pretty familiar. This corner lot is also slated to be a retail location, and the property behind it, we recently had a hearing on that. And just to give you a sense for where it is with that. Next, Marco. So now I went across the street, roughly a little bit south of where the area of the wetlands are that require the variances and the NRSP. And you can see it's just unimproved. And now next, I'm going to move to, first, I'm going to take a shot down the street and see what it looks like today at a greater view and a more distant view. And next. Now, this is the other posting that was on South Essex Street and more toward the north. And I'm going to walk up to the alleyway that you see on the right side of this photo, and then I'm going to go down that. Next. And this is just a better shot of the posting to know it was clearly correctly posted. So next. So now I'm at the side of the area. I'm still near where that posting is on Essex Street, and it just took a shot in because there are some cherry trees and other vegetation that are in here. And I believe it was hard to determine the exact property line, but maybe Marco could show us that later. But I believe this is basically going to be all cleared from what I see on the survey. Next. And now I just turned around, took a shot. That's the closest house that's there to this property. It's right at the intersection of Essex and South Euclid. Next. And now this is a shot. Okay, get back to the north side. This is a shot. I'm standing on the property kind of next door to where this building is proposed. And it's by Pete's Potting Shed and another lot that's in between that and the subject property. And just to give you another feel for the way the parking is laid out in this area. It's a shot down the next street. You can see what the parallel parking is, where the post office is, and across from that, a town parking lot. Next. Now I've turned around, and now I'm just shooting from that up in the direction of the proposed property. That pole over there, that utility pole, it's pretty much on the western boundary line of the property. I'm not sure exactly where the property starts on the south side, but that again could be pointed out to us by the planner. Next. And now just took another wider shot at the area where you see the trucks there, and on the right side is where it's a property next to the proposed property that we're hearing tonight. And again, there's going to be sidewalks and construction done that will meet those up, or is proposed to meet those up from the proposed property that we're hearing tonight. Next. And this is just another shot near the area of that telephone pole earlier, shooting up toward the north. Not much that you could see. There is a fence in there somewhere. Next. And this is near the corner on the survey. You could see the drainage that was put in by the town 3 or 4 years ago, several years ago. This is a downward sloping property, and there is a lot of water runoff that comes down Essex and down and goes down toward Euclid and the properties to the west of this one. Next. And now I'm back at the alleyway. It's got out of order a little bit. So this is the top of the alleyway. This is a 20-foot wide town-owned alleyway, and this is where it's proposed to have a number of parking spots and also the IA system toward the western portion of this alleyway. Well, it's on the property, but along the alleyway. And also affordable housing with access and a stoop to be put in above that. The property itself, you can see from the survey, is going to be back toward the western portion of this property as much as possible. And okay, this it's a 20-foot wide. Here we go. Okay. Yeah, just wanted to note the hedges and the truck that you see farther down the alleyway are actually in the alleyway. So just wanted to make note of that. Next. And now I took a shot from the northern side of the property into the property. Again, not much you could see, a lot of vegetation, some good, some bad. And next. And that's another shot along roughly the property line on the northern side. Again, you can't see much. Next. And this is the other side of the alley. So there's trailer and there's firewood, and I'm not sure who owns the property on the other side of the alley, but it is an unimproved lot pretty much today. Next. And now, oh, okay. I didn't think this one was in here, but what I did do is I wanted to see some of the other areas of the town on South Euclid, particularly because this is a heavily trafficked street, and this proposed property now is going up at the end where a lot of traffic comes off and onto Essex Street, heading into town. And this road is used very much, number one, for the post office, which is behind those trees that are in the photo, and also as a bypass for heavy traffic times to avoid Route 27. Next. And it's just the other side of that same street where there's a town parking lot, and then across the road, heading to the east, another town parking lot, and then the Nibby Montauk store, which was also in front of this board, I think, several years ago. Now, just to give you a layout for how the parking is structured along this road. Next.
I think that's all the photos I
That's
have.
the last one? Oh, okay. I don't know, but one may have gotten lost here, but that's okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Terry. Any questions, board members for Terry? No? Okay, then we will go to the applicant's agent. Good evening, Andrew.
Good evening, Andrew Strong, 5 Boatyard Road, East Hampton, for the applicant. I'm happy to be here tonight. I think the bulk of this application has been covered well by the planner's memo and the very thorough report there from Member Berger. The points that I want to hit are essentially, we've designed the building to be as far away from the wetland as possible. We've designed the septic to be as far away from the wetland as possible. I'm not sure that there is a conforming place. In fact, there is not a conforming spot on this site for the septic. The items that we need a variance for, include the ADA ramp and the walkway, which we just weren't able to design in a way that avoided that need, but which we feel like are de minimis structures in relation to this project. I think one of the key features of this site plan that we were trying to integrate is the pitch of this lot runs away from the wetlands, and that's something that the planner noted in his memo that this runoff is going the opposite direction. Nonetheless, it required some considerable thought in terms of how we're going to deal with the drainage on this site. And to that point, I just want to make clear that the survey on the screen currently is the most up-to-date survey. And that survey has come about after going back and forth a number of times. I think we've been in front of the planning board for over a year to try to get the drainage right. And we've added here a dry well in the alleyway and a dry well on the corner by South Euclid to try to capture that runoff. We've also put in a 6-inch concrete curb to try to address that as well. So that's really been our focus in this design, and that's where we're coming from with this application. I think the survey that was submitted originally to the ZBA doesn't have these 2 dry wells. And so irrespective of the comments tonight from the board, we'll ask that the record be held open until the 14th of December so that we can submit a survey that matches, so that we have a survey that the planning board and the zoning board can all work from. But they're going to, the effect is going to be they're going to increase the drainage on the site.
Andrew, just to interrupt, I believe the survey did have the 5 dry wells. It was the engineer's documents that were not current. Okay, just so you know.
That's good. I can't say which wording, but then what we'll want to do is just marry up those documents so that they're all reflected.
Okay, this is the survey dated February 16, 2021, right? It does have multiple dry wells on it.
Yeah, and that's 5.
Five. Yeah, 5.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, but those are my submissions on this project. We feel like we've tried to design 2,000 square foot footprint with a modest affordable housing apartment on top, and we've tried to be thoughtful about the way the water is going to work. So I'm happy to take any questions that the board has.
Thank you.
Andrew,
A point of clarification, though, Andrew, if you would.
Yep.
You mentioned the septic system not conforming, but the septic system doesn't look like it's noticed. Can you just clarify that?
it isn't for variance, Roy.
Yeah, it is right for,
Okay.
Yeah.
137.2 feet from the wetland.
All right, great. Thank you. I got it now.
yep. Terry, you had a question, Terry? Next.
Yeah, I'm concerned about this parking arrangement in the town right away, particularly on this property, perhaps more than any other, because of the traffic coming down South Essex, down and up, and on South Euclid. There are other properties that have had this kind of arrangement, but they're sort of, I'll call diverse setups in different locations on this street for parking. And I'm concerned about this particular one at most because of its closeness to the corner of South Essex. So I don't know what other alternatives there might be for the parking, to meet the parking requirements.
Yeah. I think that's a good point. And maybe the town planner can speak to this a little, because this is an issue that we have gone over at length with the planning board, which is, obviously very concerned about traffic and the traffic patterns. One of the things that we've done is pulled the walkway onto our property so that we can pull back a little bit away from the street. Another thing that we've talked about is keeping the vegetation low along South Essex Street and around that corner, so that as you're coming down South Essex Street, the sight line is clear, so that you're not whipping around and not seeing somebody trying to pull out onto South Euclid. So those are some of the considerations that we put in front of the planning board. But I'll also just look to the town planner, because I'm sure he has some thoughts as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then you brought up vegetation, because I didn't see a revegetation plan. I don't know, since this is an NRSP, is there a revegetation plan?
Marco has one he can pull up. It probably should have been in our files, but when Marco does have one that he can pull up, Terry.
Okay.
Any other questions, Terry, or any other board members? No? Anyone? Ed, anything? Oh, you're on mute, Ed. Yeah.
I just want to repeat the concerns that Member Berger has about a vegetation plan. I'd like to see it. When it gets pulled up, it'll be fine, because I think that we're going to see that when you visit the lot, and I've been through it a few times, it's going to be basically cleared. And when it goes back together, it's a very aesthetic corner in the town. So obviously we're going to want to know what we're planning to do here. So that'd be a concern of mine. Then I've followed a little bit of the planning board discussion on this, and there's been certainly a great deal of discussion about parking and traffic influence on traffic. So I'll go along with Andrew Strong on this and say we'll wait for the planner, but they're both areas of concern to me.
So we see the planting plan there. Marco, I'll go ahead and swear you in, because we'll be asking you questions. Marco, if you could raise your right hand. And do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Great. I just have a quick question, since I can't zoom in quite. The trees on the corner, are they Acer, sycamore?
I can zoom in.
Oh, okay. They're 8 to 10 foot height. That's what I was concerned with. Okay, but the stem, I imagine when they're fully grown, you probably have about 5 or 6 feet of clear understory. I mean, clear just where you're looking at the tree trunk.
Right.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, this is the same species they had on the plan across the street, and it's a prohibited species in New York State DEC.
Oh, there you go.
And this is the same one again. I think the planning board may be aware of that,
Mhm.
Yes, we've
Good point.
been back and forth. They're going to dogwood, is how they'll be switched. But we will we're happy to revise that so that they meet that concern, and that's
Okay.
a very good catch.
Good catch. What did you say, dogwood, Andrew?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Excuse me.
What about oak trees?
Can I ask if this has gone, Marco, has this gone to our planners? Has it gone in front of Brian Frank or anyone to look at the species and to look at the density and to make any recommendations yet?
This plan hasn't been submitted to the ZBA, so I haven't had discussions with Brian or the other planners that present usually for the ZBA about the planting list, but that is something that I'll definitely have to do as it goes along.
Yeah, and also,
I think that little blue stem and big blue stem, I don't know how appropriate that is for this area either, but you can discuss that with them.
I just for what it's worth, we're happy to take to implement whatever suggestions come out of the planning department. That section, the line that we're trying to walk is the section nearest the wetlands, but it's also a section that we want to keep a clear sight line for Euclid. And so I think it would be very productive to put it in front of a planner and incorporate their suggestions.
I agree, Andrew. And when you've done that, we've seen this here. When you've done that, obviously make sure that gets submitted to our files and on the public files for the.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
Perhaps we can hear from the planning department.
Yeah, let's do that. Yep. Thank you, Tim. Unless anyone has any questions, we'll go on to Marco. Good evening again, Marco.
Evening. So I think we did summarize for the most part what the major discussion points are for this application. Let me just go back to the survey really quickly. So this was the survey that was submitted to the ZBA file. As you note, the sidewalk that's proposed here is within the property lines. This was something that was discussed in one of the earlier reviews of the planning board when discussing location for the sidewalk. Members of the planning board had expressed concern about if the sidewalk were to be moved outside the property lines, that it would push the parking spaces further into the right of way. And so they had preferred it to be inside. And so that is what the applicant has done and submitted to you in front of you today. The parking space in regards to the comments of the project itself, the board was supportive of a natural resource special permit for the building. It is also supportive of the 5 parking spaces in the straight right of way to maintain consistency with the parking that's been approved over numerous parcels on the street. So just to reiterate again, the planning board has discussed the parking spaces that are proposed here. I think if I were to go to the photos to kind of give some sense of scales, let me just share the photos that Teresa Miss Berger has put up. So this is where the drainage is, the town drainage. So roughly speaking, the sidewalk is, the corner of that development is a little bit further in. So it would be behind where this drainage site is, and it would go down that road. It would be to the right, in this case, this picture, to the right of that telephone pole. I have personally measured out the spaces in terms of 12 feet from the center line for the road right away. And then after that, the remaining space is insufficient in regards to parking spaces. But that said, it is true, this intersection, given the topography of this intersection, it does go downhill from South Essex Street. And that is a concern because cars could be speeding. They make that right turn at speeds that, and they may not be aware of someone pulling out. So there is sufficient space for the parking spaces as it was designed and adopted in the 1987 Downtown Montauk study. But obviously that is a concern. And so we've noted that in the future, there should be consideration, whether it's for the town board to consider implementing a stop sign and a crosswalk to improve not just walkability, but also road safety. That is, for the most part, the summary of the parking discussion. This was last reviewed by the planning board, not this specific plan, but a newer sanitary plan. I will show you that actually right now.
Marco, before that, going back to the parking spots, did they consider at all having that be parallel parking as it's laid out on the block next to it, where the post office is?
I think there was definitely discussion and points brought up about potentially having it to be parallel parking rather than head-in parking. I do want to note that point was brought up after the board had pretty much decided that the applicant should have this sidewalk in the right of way, not in the right way, the sidewalk on the property lines, and that the parking spaces should be lined up in this current configuration. In general, across the board, the way the parking spaces are laid out as head-in parking is consistent with the way the street has been laid out and designed. And so I think overall that is where the planning board has led to, although there is some discussion between certain members about maybe something else. But I do want to note the applicant has submitted this plan before you with the guidance of where the planning board felt like the applicant should be at. So.
And can I just add that the discussion about what should be done tends to center around issues for the town board, such as putting in stop signs, putting in lowering the speed limit, putting in. I think there was a discussion about making the street one way at one point. The clear guidance from the planning board in terms of the parking configuration has been the plan in front of you, and it's been one we've gone back and forth on. The issue about the general flow of traffic in Montauk, I think, is a broader issue, and that's some of the suggestions from the planning board have been that to write a letter to the town board, to try to address that.
If I could just comment on that was why I did ask for that plan from 1987, 85, whenever that was.
Yeah.
Doesn't look like it's been revised, and also doesn't look like it was followed necessarily either. So you're right, Andrew. It's a bigger issue.
I do want to add on to that. Yes, for the planning board's discussion, some of the members had expressed their main concerns with the parking configuration as potentially not enough space for the parking spaces, as in the distance between them and where the actual flow of traffic is. They are concerned about that, but as far as I could tell and from what I could see, there is sufficient space. So that is the final point on that and what the planning department and planning board has discussed.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Marco. Any other questions for Marco? Okay, let's move on to the public. The LTV, Michael, do we have anyone in the public wishing to comment?
No, there are no callers at this time.
Actually, Mr. Whalen, I forgot to discuss about the drainage. I apologize. That is one more point that the planning board has also discussed. So if that's okay with you, I want to elaborate that the planning board has also discussed the drainage on the site. As you know, the last review of the drainage plans that were last updated was discussed at the planning board meeting on October 6th. I'm just going to show you what the plan was that was presented in front of the planning board last time, because that plan is updated and is different from the one that has been submitted at the time of the ZBA application was submitted. I think this is correct and showing. So this is the last revision that the applicant has made in regards to drainage, as well as parking configuration and other details such as that, that was presented from the planning board and discussed by the planning board. So you can see there are areas that were delineated as drainage areas 1 and 2. And basically the short summary behind the end of this discussion with the planning board is that this plan will be referred to the town's consulting engineer for review to ensure that all the comments that he had made in his initial review of the drainage in this area was done correctly, followed correctly, and if there are any revisions that need to be done, then he would note in his review.
Now, this one again, why these have to be married, this one again is showing 4 dry wells and not 5, so that's why these have to be worked out.
Yes, so that is something that would have to be settled and also corrected by the time any approvals are given or considered, that the applicant submit the right plans, that they're incorporating all the comments and provisions necessary, and that the survey and the site plan match.
Yeah, and I just hope that the engineer is getting the correct plan, because this one has one less, but we can move on. I think we understand that's got Andrew and their team is going to have to work that out.
Yeah.
Andrew, we want to move along here. Anything final you have to add? Are you good?
No, just to say that we can get a new survey and engineering plan incorporating the engineer's comments that match, and a landscaping plan to the board if we can leave the record open until December 14th. I just want to give a hard date so that we can work towards that. The only other very small issue that I want to raise is that the ADA ramp coming off of the building there, after meeting with the fire marshal, that's going to need a switchback. It's not going to encroach any further onto the wetlands. You can see it just off the north side. It just is going to have essentially it's going to get wider, a little wider, so that the slope is conforming and is maximally conforming. So you'll see that on the new plans as well. But I think that's going to be an improvement to what you see before you here.
Okay. Okay. If there are no questions from the board, or Terry?
Chair,
yes.
Chair, if I may suggest,
yes.
Perhaps we should keep the asking for the submissions by that the applicant is willing to do by December 14th, but I believe there's a possibility of engineer's report that it sounds like could have some changes to that. If I may suggest, we can close the public hearing tonight and accept these additional, as the record will be kept open in any case for 2 weeks after the transcript post. But if any of the information that comes in substantially changes the application, then the board may want to consider reopening the hearing so that the applicant can come back and explain those, so that it's just letting people know that that's a potential here, just so that we can try to keep the approval that this board is looking at is similar to the approval that the planning department is looking at.
Thank you, Nancy Lynn, for that. Appreciate it. Okay, Harry,
you're basing that on the drainage report?
From the engineer. Yeah.
And there are as was stated, there are going to be some changes to the re-veg plan. There's also going to be changes to the ADA ramp, which requires the variance. and a consistency between the site plan and the survey. So if any of those items are significant enough for the board to want to reopen the hearing, we can consider that at that time. If any of the board members want to reopen it in order
Okay.
to
Now,
get
that time being what time? December 14th? Or 2
Well-
weeks after the transcript post?
when we get the items in by December 14th, we won't close before then, but
Mhm.
whichever's later. And if anything comes in at that time, then the board can consider whether or not to reopen the record and reopen the hearing in order to discuss that further.
Okay. But right now, it is going to be to close it on the 14th. And
Or
do the-
or 2 weeks after the transcript post, whichever's later.
Oh, whichever's later. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Got it. All right. So in the matter of Michael O'Connell at 96 South Essex Street in Montauk, tax map 300-049-1-13.2, make a motion to close the public hearing and to leave the written record open for 2 weeks until 2 weeks after the transcript posts to the website, or December 14th for the applicant to update the various submissions required.
I'll second it.
I concur.
I concur.
And I concur as well. Okay, thank you, Terry. Thank you, Marco. Thank you, Andrew.
Thanks very much. Good to see
Lynn.
you all.
Take care.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Okay, we'll move on next. We have our next scheduled public hearing is S&C Property Trust at 40 Hedges Bank Drive in East Hampton. And the lot size and location is 40,199 square feet at 40 Hedges Bank Drive, East Hampton. Tax map 300-35-2-6. Description is to construct a 40-foot linear set of bluff stairs and allow fencing to remain on a parcel of land containing bluffs and beaches. The relief sought is a natural resources special permit pursuant to 255-4-20. Variances from 255-4-40 coastal setbacks of the town code and any other relief necessary. The following variances are required. A 56-foot variance is required to allow the fencing to remain 44 feet from the bluff crest where a 100-foot setback is required. This is in an A residence zoning district, and the flood zone is X, and the secret class is type 2. And council, do we have a proper affidavit of service and posting?
We have an affidavit that the mailings were done on the 15th day of October, and that the posting was also done on the 15th day of October. So the paperwork appears to be in order.
Okay, thank you. This is in board member Tim Brenneman's East Hampton district. Tim, if you would, please.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I did visit the property on Sunday. It was a little bit nicer then than it is today. And the property was properly noticed. I am going to go through a number of photos this evening. There were several things noted in the TAM that I wanted to be able to show just to connect the board to some of the comments within the TAM. So next photo, please. So now I've walked to the front of the driveway, and I'm looking basically east to the front of the structure, looking through the gates. Next photo. Okay, so now I've walked to the southern property line. I'm starting to walk around to the back of the property, so you can start to see the way the property lays out. Along the right-hand side there, you see the fence, which is on the southern border of the on the survey. Next photo. Now I'm looking at a structure, again, kind of along the southern border. There's a structure that's not on the survey. I think it's some kind of viewing structure, and you can see behind it then the start of the fence that runs along the eastern part of this property which is one of the variances that is in front of us tonight. Also would note here that the property has got a lot of grass between the pool and that fence. So that is one of the areas that wanted to point out. Next photo. So now I've gone over to the corner of the swimming pool and again looked out basically toward the north and the east. So I'm now looking out over Gardiner's Bay. You get a sense for the relationship on the survey between the pool and the fence, and then the scenic easement that is beyond. I'll get a little bit closer to that here in a second. Next photo. Okay, so now I've walked to the eastern part of the property, standing along the fence line. The TAM indicates that the scenic easement, which was at 1.50 feet, is now 40 feet and has been recently revegetated. And I can report it's in good condition. Next photo. Now I've gone through the gate out into the scenic easement along the bluff crest. And so I am swinging my camera really toward the south here, looking down. In the TAM, there's reference to the neighboring property and there being a public access to a walkway down to the beach. You can see that stairway in the distance on this photo. I'll have another photo of that in a little bit. Next photo. And now I've rotated to the north and taken that shot. And one of the things that you'll see here is that the actual, you can see that there's a pathway here. This is referenced in the TAM. And I think it was used as part of the reason for the denial of the stairs and platform back in 1989. And so I thought it would be good to get a sense of that. Next photo. So now I've walked down that pathway all the way down to the beach, and this is the stairway heading down. The one thing I will note in this photo and in others is that the bluff crest isn't in great shape in all places along this stretch, but it happens to be in pretty good shape in front of this subject property. Next photo. So now I've just swung my camera toward the north. You can see really the snow fence there would be the demarcation of the subject property. So you start to get a sense for how the beach looks here. Next photo. Now I've walked up to the really the probably the southernmost portion of the property, just to take a first photo of what the bluff looks like in front of our property. The proposed stairway would be roughly to the right of this paddleboard that's along the beach there. Next photo. Now I've swung my camera back, and again, this is looking down to the south. So I'm basically in front of our property, looking to the south. The first stairwell that you see leading down is the one that I was just at previously. You can't see it here, but what I would tell you is that I could see probably 3 other beach access ways off of Hedges Bank looking to the south here. Next photo. And again, this is at the corner of our subject property. So I'm kind of on the northern portion of our property now. There's a little picnic table that's obviously being used. Next photo. And now I'm looking, one of the notes in the TAM relates to the beach access that's to the property to the north of this property. And what you can't see here, unless we really zoomed in, and there's no real reason to, is that I could see 5 different beach accesses from where I'm standing right here as I look to the north. So, kind of the 360-degree view here is that the property to the south, where there is the public access, it's very close to our property. And that's absolutely true. And then the second part of this is the number of beach access stairwells that are on neighboring properties now to this property. That's also true. So, and I think that may be the last photo.
It looks like, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Tyler.
Thank you, Tim, for that thorough site visit report. Board members, any questions?
Yeah.
Okay, we will go to the agent's applicant. Do we have David Kirst here?
Yes, Chairman.
I mean, the applicant's agent, I meant to say. Sorry. Good evening, David. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Okay, thanks.
Hi, David Kirst of Matthews, Kirst & Cooley here for S&C Property Trust. As board member Brenneman noted, there's actually 6 staircases to the northerly properties, including all 3 of the next in line up Hedges Banks Road, including our immediate neighbor, which I believe Mr. Delalio had referenced in his TAM. And then to the south, there's, in addition to the public access, there's another 4 private accesses off of Hedges Banks. So we've got 10 private plus the 1 public. I think the existence of all of those in this area show that that's something that is compatible. And also they haven't shown any, detriment in having these staircases on those bluffs. And a few of them, I believe, were even administrative permits. A few of them are also very recent vintage 2019 that they've been approved. So in regards to the stair, that was actually slightly relocated from our original submission, which was originally further south at Mr. Delalio's request. It was moved to a more central part of the property that will, do a service there to allow ease of access for our clients directly down to the beach. A 4-foot wide path would be cleared through the easement, which is permitted under the easement terms. Our client only purchased this property last year, immediately revegetated within a few months of their purchase. The lawn area that the prior owner had maintained a lawn all the way right up to the top of the bluff. They'd been extending permits and not doing the work. And, pretty quickly after closing, they got together with the landscaper, had that revegetated, had it resurveyed, and then we submitted our applications here for the stairs. When it comes to the variance for the fence, after having discussions with Mr. Delalio, even though the 2003 approval even required the installation of a barrier at the landward boundary of the scenic easement once the revegetation was done. However, his thought was, since that was part of a natural resources permit and not a variance, that we would need relief to keep that, to put a fence along that boundary, which is why we added it to our application and are now before the board. As you can see from the pictures Mr. Brenneman took, it's a simple post and wire fence to comply with pool code. And we feel between the fence and the stairway, these really only provide a benefit to to our client with no real detriment to the neighboring properties or the community.
Okay, thank you, David.
No problem.
David, just a quick question. On the drawings that I'm looking at, it's showing a platform on the top and the survey does not.
No,
Can you just
I
explain
believe
that?
you must be looking at old drawings.
Okay, can you
we've
give us
had-
the date of the drawings then, so we can look at?
The current drawings are May 26th of 2020, I believe, or 2021.
I think they were received June 3rd, 2021.
Okay, thank you.
Because that was another thing that Mr. Delalio had discussed, was part of, from his review of the prior applications, the reason, or at least a good portion of the reason why the prior beach stair back in, I think, the early 90s was denied was because of the platform, and that they he did not feel that the platform, complied with the easement or with the town's general allowance for the beach access stairs.
Thank you.
Thanks for pointing that out, Roy. I had seen that earlier. And David, I'm sure the treehouse is not going to be there in the near future. Is that correct?
I was unaware of that until Mr. Brenneman's photograph. So yes, that would have to be removed.
Yeah. Okay. Tim, any questions? Anyone?
The one question that I would have is, we're asking for a variance, asking for an NRSP. It's really about, for us on applications like this, protecting the bluff crest. I note that the original approval on this was based on a 50-foot scenic easement, which is now down to a 40-foot scenic easement. And I wanted to ask if the applicant would be willing to move that fence back 10 feet and reestablish the 50-foot scenic easement as mitigation for this application.
I don't know the answer to that. I wouldn't advise them of that. The 50-foot easement was based on, the prior top of the bluff. And the easement also, I think, was from that time, the filed map boundary of the mean high water line. I mean, there at portions of this easement, if you scale it out, you range of probably about 45 feet average between where the current top of the bluff is and this fence. And honestly, neither the fence or the bluff or the bluff stairs will have any negative impact on the location of the top of the bluff to require a further expansion of that scenic easement. Our client here has come in where the prior owner had disregarded and had lawn all the way up to the edge of that bluff and revegetated that and brought it into compliance and is trying to do the right thing here. Knowing that there was a scenic easement that they're honoring, I don't think there's a real justification to expand that further into their lawn.
Well, they seem to have a lot of lawn there, and I'm just wondering, what does that say, 45 feet, Tyler?
Approximately, yeah.
Yeah, good. Actually, Tyler, I'll quickly swear you in case we have questions. Tyler, if you please, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, thank you. So, David, it sounds, to Tim's point, you're really not offering any mitigation besides getting rid of the treehouse, the illegal treehouse. I wonder if you may want to consider, if it's 45 feet, perhaps even leaving the fence where it is, which I will admit perhaps impedes lawnmowers further mowing. It looks like you have plenty of lawn there. I wonder if you don't want to talk to your client, as there is no mitigation for these requests, about possibly something like a 5-foot or a 10-foot planting on leaving the fence where it is and planting some proper plants that would not be mowed down in front of the house on the landward side of the fence. On the landward side of the fence.
I will gladly have that discussion with them. I can't make that call for them without speaking with them. However, I feel the request for mitigation in this case is mitigation essentially just for the request, but not for any detriment being caused by it. I mean, the fence location protects the scenic easement, protects the bluff. Adding that fence there does not cause any detriment to either. And I respectfully feel the same way regarding the beach stair. That will provide a elevated direct access point and protect the bluff from anyone who's trying to go up or down it without the stair. So I will gladly ask my client if they will entertain that request. But I also feel that there's really not much to mitigate here, respectfully.
Well, I would also mention to your client that the previous application was denied because of the landing and also because of the adjacent stair that is available to the public. So I do not think if the stair were denied that anyone would be climbing up and down that dune, honestly. And certainly constructing that stair does, in the immediate sense, damage the bluff face. And I will say this, even though perhaps it was not your client, but this property ignored a 50-foot scenic easement and had a lawn going up to the bluff. That was probably, who knows what was being fertilized with. So, this isn't a crispy clean history here for this property. So, it's your call, and then we'll make our call at the work session.
I said I will gladly make the request and have the discussion with them. I feel that it was necessary also to make your request. I'll put our points on the record also, but I will speak to my client, and they may be so inclined to do that. And unfortunately, we stepped into the history here on this property and have taken very quick steps to remediate that. So unfortunately, both the prior owner and the town allowed that condition to go on for years and years of building permit renewals and extensions. And we're just here trying to fix it and bring it back to, where it should be, for this fence that I said the 2003 determination even says that they should have installed a fence. Part of that determination says install a fence or other barrier at the landward edge of the easement, which if the prior applicant had done that, if the town had followed through in enforcing that, we really, I don't think even would be here for this fence application because it was part of that approval. But we're here based on our conversations with Mr. Delalio that, and that wasn't that would have needed a variance then that wasn't granted. So we're here trying to correct the wrongs of the past with this fence and, move forward with what we feel is a amenity of the beach stair that is necessary for our client. So
right. Okay, so that's fine. And obviously your client can also watch this discussion so that he or she gets a sense of what we're talking about. But again, we will wait. The record will be held open until 2 weeks after this transcript is posted. So you certainly have time to get back with us on it with a memo or a sketch or something. And then we will make our decision at the work session when we vote on this application. Any other questions, board members, for David before we go to the plan?
I have 2 points if I may. David, I believe I saw some irrigation within that easement. Can we request that it be removed?
If there is, I can of course pass that along. I know in the pictures, I think it was, I had seen it was at the edge of the easement. But if there's any in there,
I thought I saw some close to the bluff line.
Vice Chair Delaney, if I can speak up for a minute. I was out on the site myself, walked around. There are definitely sprinkler heads out in the easement.
Okay.
Okay, and then secondly, that fence right now looks like it's a wood post wire fence. Can we get that defined or covenant to remain a transparent fence of that kind?
We can make that a condition if it is approved, if anything's approved, right? I'm sorry, David, I didn't mean to answer for you.
No, I mean, I don't see an issue with that without having discussion with my client, but I would, you saw from the wonderful pictures that Mr. Brenneman took, I think the last thing they would want to do is put up a solid fence to obstruct their views.
I know, and I'm bringing that up because there are some other properties that we dealt with on this path too, as far as not having a fence that impedes the natural beauty of the landscape.
Okay, I will make that request as well.
Thank you. Okay, let's go to the planning department. Tyler, good evening again.
Good evening, Tyler Borsak for the planning department. So this parcel is located on Hedges Banks in East Hampton. Many of these parcels on the seaward side of Hedges Banks Drive were developed prior to NRSP regulations and largely have been cleared to the bluff crests that exist on the parcels. This property in particular was initially developed in 1988. The ZBA determination at the time established a 50-foot scenic easement along the bluff crest. And as was sort of already mentioned, the landward boundary of that scenic easement is now 40 to 45 feet from the edge of the bluff crest. The established scenic easement had been cleared from at least 2001 based on aerial review until very recently. The easement was to be revegetated in conjunction with a 2003 approval under the previous owner, but that did not occur until 2020, 2021, somewhere in that range. 1989 determination on this property denied the construction of a platform and stairway to be constructed on the parcel close to the property line. At that time, the board cited that the applicant's parcel abuts the landfall property that contained its own platform and stairwell to the beach, and that public access was sufficient for this parcel. Since that time, the board has granted many natural resource special permits to parcels along Hedges Banks Drive, as was, sort of already discussed, including the neighboring property. In comparison to the 89 denial, this application does not include a viewing platform at the top of the bluff and is more centralized location on the property. The scenic easement established by the board as part of the initial development lot does allow for access stairways from the top of the bluff to the beach, so that's not a concern at this time either. The planning department does not hold a strong opinion on the continuing existence of the fencing on the parcel, since it's no more non-conforming than the fencing that was conditioned in the board's 2003 approval, and in part acts as pool fencing as is required by code. Some fencing had existed on the property lines since at least 1989 CO in one form or another. The current fencing runs along those two property lines and then cuts across the north-south along that scenic easement. I can answer any questions you might have. The one thing I might note is the revegetation that was done, and this was as part of the 2003 approval, was a lot of grasses. It wasn't a heck of a lot of woody vegetation in there. So instead of increasing that scenic easement, the board or the applicant might be more inclined to add woody vegetation to the revegetation that was already done to try and bolster that up a little bit and help hold that sand a little more effectively than just grasses would. But that's the only suggestion I might have, if that makes sense to you.
Okay, thank you, Tyler. Any questions, board members, for Tyler? Tim?
Nope, not for me.
Okay. Okay, LTV, Michael, do we have anyone in the public wishing to speak?
No, there are no public callers on this, but the architect is on the hold if you'd like.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if we have any questions. Board members, any questions? No.
No.
Okay, Tim, you want to close this out then, if you please?
Sure. In the matter of S&C Property Trust at 40 Hedges Banks Drive, East Hampton, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-35-2-6, I make a motion to close the public hearing and to hold the public record open until 2 weeks after the transcripts of this hearing post to the town website.
Second.
I'll concur.
Concur.
And I concur as well. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Tyler. Thank you, David. Have a
Thank you
good
all.
evening.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Okay, next, we'll move right along here. We have, all right, next scheduled public hearing is 39 Hampton LLC. Is the applicant. Pardon me, is the applicant. Lot size and location is 7,320 square feet at 39 Hoppin Avenue, map number 2730, Oceanside at Montauk, map of Lot 221, Montauk, tax map number 300-31-2-2. Description here is to modify a determination in order to allow the existing sanitary system to remain as installed and to regrade the area around the sanitary system as proposed. The relief sought, a modification of the zoning board's natural resources special permit and variances determination filed March 20th, 2019, which granted the ability to construct a 1,100 square foot residence with 520 square feet of decking and a new sanitary system within jurisdiction and setbacks of freshwater wetlands. This is in a B residence zone. The flood zone is AE flood zone elevation 11 and 12. The secret class here is type 2. And council, do we have a proper affidavit of service and posting, please?
We have an affidavit that the mailings were done on the 14th day of October and that the posting was done on the 13th day of October. So the paperwork appears to be in order.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Nancy Lynn. Let's see, we have the, do we have the agent for the applicant here? We have.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I did take.
Oh, I apologize, Terry. God.
But Joel has joined us on his Zoom link.
Okay, great. Great.
Yeah.
Great. Terry, my apologies. I'm trying to rush you.
That's okay. Well, this is a rehearing on a modification, but I actually did take a significant amount of photos because when I went there were some differences between the survey, the latest survey that we had submitted to us, and what it looked like today, and some differences from Tyler's pictures that were taken back in January and March.
Yeah.
So I did take a full set of photos, actually. And it was properly posted. You can see the posting there. And one of the things that has changed is the parking area. It had been expanded and was going back to what was approved by this board. And you can see they have made some changes from the time that Tyler was out there taking photos. So this is a shot down the east side of the property. And it's the next door neighbor, the nearest neighbor to the east. And I'm going to take a walk around, mostly focused on the back where the septic system is, though.
Great, thank you.
Okay, it's interesting. I'm sure this looks like my photo. It's the back. Yeah. Did I take this one? I'm sorry. Okay. It's
a great photo, Terry.
It's
This would be like the front right of the property.
But
like the driveway.
I'm not sure which direction I'm looking at here.
The driveway would be to your left here.
To your
left. To the left.
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay, I still don't even
essentially walk to
taking
the right,
this. Okay.
Picture from the other corner.
Is that a recall seeing the sign? All right. Anyway, this is another shot of the house from the side. And okay, now this is a shot again from the front. I don't know if I took that shot by mistake or accident. Yeah. But anyway, you can see that the grassy area where there had been some driveway, and one of the things, again, not under discussion for today, looked like there was sodding done. It also felt like there was steel border edging that was done, maybe left over from when the driveway was pulled back to a more appropriate location. And I don't know if that's to remain or not, but anyway, if we can continue. Next photo. All right, now this is the right side, and this is where the decking and fencing had been done, not toward the termination. This is just the latest status of that. I don't know the status, if it's rectified. It didn't look like it, but anyway. Next photo. And that's just a shot going through. You can see toward the back where it does grade up now. There's a few stairs that lead up to the area where the septic exists. And I'm going to go around the left side. Couldn't really walk through here on the right, on the eastern side. Now, this is a shot down the left side as I'm walking toward the back, and there was revegetation done. You can see some nice specimens, very close up in this photo. And there's also invasives that have moved in, which is, what they do as soon as it's cleared. Next, there were grasses also, but I'm walking toward that back. There is an irrigation system here, so I don't know if, again, this is a temporary measure until the revegetation takes hold or what, but maybe the agent can address that. Next. Now, in the back, the house there is the house on Agnew on the southern property, beyond the southern property line. And I'm going to walk back toward that. This is the general area. You can see some revegetation that was done and is starting to take hold. Next. And this is a shot toward that southeastern corner where the part of the swale is going to be, the plan for the swale is noted on the plan for that the engineer can discuss later on. There is a drop off back toward that southern property line, and there's a fence there now that I didn't think was there the last time I was out here. I'm not sure if this applicant put up a fence. I think it did show on the survey, but I didn't think it was there before. Next. But this is a shot. I've turned now toward the west, and it's hard to tell, but there is a drop off there between the fencing, and you can see the grading go down. And beyond that fence is a shed of, I don't know whose that is or what property it's on. Next, you can see this goes up, and now I'm standing at the septic, and you can see and kind of get an idea toward the southeast of what that looks like. I did take shots on both sides of this post that's here, which is next two shots, and that it's showing an elevation of 10 feet. And next on the other side, also showing an elevation of 10 feet on that post. Next. Now I just turned from that area and I'm facing toward the wetlands now, which is in the northwestern portion. And just give you an idea of that. You can see the decking in the corner there. And next, this is another shot of there's that structure beyond the fence, and I'm not sure what property that is on. I believe it's not the applicant's, but maybe Joel can just confirm that or not. Next. And that's just another shot into the wetlands along the fence line. Next. Okay, skip that. We already had that. Next. And that's a shot. I moved my car out of the parking area, just get another shot of the parking area. It is this today. And I think that's it.
Okay, thank you, Terry, for doing that. Board members, any questions?
Not now.
No. Okay, let's go to the applicant's agent. I believe, do we have Richard Warren with us?
Joel Halsey.
Oh, Joel, I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead again. Thanks, Joel. My apologies.
No worries.
Yeah, good evening, Joel. I'll swear you in. Thanks. Joel, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Great. Go ahead, please, Joel.
So the modification before the board tonight is relatively simple, and it was actually required by the board. So I hope not to take up too much time. Essentially, the property is going to look exactly how it was approved. The only differences there are going to be on this will be the changes in topography as required, as designed by the town's engineer, in order to try to shunt some of the drainage away from the neighboring property. Beyond that, again, this property is going to be, at the end of the day, before you issue the ability for this property to get a CO, it's going to have to match exactly what was approved in the determination, other than besides the change in topography as designed by the town engineer. When this was brought up to the board, I'd say at least 2 months ago, prior to the modification submittal, the board had approved the engineer plan. So essentially, we're just trying to get the modification so we can go ahead with the town engineer's plan in order to finish this project and finally get a certificate of occupancy on this property. With regards to the shed, it's not on this property. It must be on the neighboring property.
Okay. Thank you, Joe. Any questions for Joe, board members?
My question would be, Mr. Chair, just that we had a fair amount of discussion. I've been to the site a couple of times. It's a fair amount of water we're trying to shunt back into what was the undeveloped parcel that's on the corner of Otis Road, which is wetland. And I think in order to do that, there'll be some work being done with the adjacent property. So I guess I would have a concern that I guess is that 46 Agnew, whatever the property is to be most affected, there'd be some sort of agreement between this applicant and that owner when that work begins. I realize that if you're showing the work to be done primarily or entirely on this lot, but there still could be some collateral work that has to be done between the two in creating the swale. But that would be a concern.
It's kind of like an 11th hour request here, and I'm just trying to. This was a design by your town engineer. In order to do this, we're doing this in good faith, and in fact, I don't know. I'd like to visit the property tomorrow. It's my understanding that once the dry wells and the gutters and the leaders to the gutters were installed in this property, it'll help alleviate a lot of the problems with the neighboring property. In fact, if you look at this property, this isn't the only property that drains to that one property. Every property in this area drains onto that property. It's just the unfortunate, topography in this area. That is, you see the topography of 5. I believe it goes down to 4 right behind that neighbor's house. And it goes up on every property surrounding that property. So it's not just this property that the water goes onto the neighboring property. It's the property lot 240, as you see on the survey there. It's the lot just to the east of that. It's the lot to the east of that, and it's the lot to the south, the south, or just to the east of the lot 222, which is the problem property. In fact, the problem property, the water drains from that property, from the road, from that property into this low spot. It's just the topography of this area, and there's not much you can do about it except for possibly changing the topography on there or adding drainage on their own property. So, again, this was a design by the town's engineer to avoid this, to alleviate this situation.
Yeah, I realize that, and I'm not disagreeing with you. So we're saying we have the board has asked for an engineer's report, and we've accepted that report, and that's why we moved forward to here. I'm just saying that is a very small amount of area to move a lot of water, and it becomes obvious when you're standing there. And I think that whatever work gets done there should be done with some sort of in conjunction with approval from the neighbor, so that we don't see that we've done something, we've gone beyond your allowance on this lot. Now, I realize that's on you, but nonetheless, it's for us to look out for all the conditions in this area and what can happen in adjacent.
I wouldn't even imagine how to go about doing that, so unless you were going to bring in the town engineer again to design something for the neighbor.
No, we're not even talking about that. I'm saying.
But you want an approval from the neighbor.
You're working on this land exactly on your property line, and there's going to be some excavation done, some regrading done, and that grading should be done in concert with approval from the neighbor. That's what I'm saying.
Isn't that essentially what this meeting, if they're on the line and or they've been noticed that this is going on, isn't that kind of a de facto approval from the neighbor if they don't say anything?
I'm not aware that we've done this before, honestly. So I don't know where this is going.
Yeah. I think I see Ed's concern, but Ed, I think this would be a difficult thing obviously no excavation, there'll be a limiting fence or something when the construction's going on, I'm sure, Joel, and no one can stick a shovel in the neighbor's property, but I don't know about how you would, get approval from the neighbor for this. I think it's unusual. It would, as Joel said, this is, and as you've said, Ed, this has been approved by us, this engineer's report. So I don't know how Joel would really get an approval from the neighbor.
And the neighbor knows it's been noticed.
Go ahead, Terry.
No, I have a question for Joel, actually. We received a report from the Reno Group, right, back on June 17th.
Correct.
And it says, about the swale, and it described that let me find it here now. Grading the immediate area along the southerly property line of the site in a manner that the southeast corner is higher than the southwest corner. Okay, so that sounds simple. And then when I do have a question on the septic site plan that came in, where the notations are on there, and actually in the southeast corner, it says hold the elevation as it currently exists, and then grade shallow swale in a westerly direction. So I guess I thought they might raise something at that southeast corner and then swale it down from there, where they stated that they're going to hold it at that. I don't know if you can comment on that, Joel.
That was designed by your engineer, not our engineer, and you'd have to have, and Vinny Gaudiello would be the town engineer. You'd have to ask him to comment on it because it was his plan. And you guys, again, you guys have already approved this plan. I mean, essentially approved the plan. This is kind of a last minute. You guys have all seen it. You've had this plan for months. I don't know, what more can be done here.
Well, we did approve the plan and the swale and that, but the details, I think the last time, maybe, so Mr. Chairman, maybe we should have our engineer comment on that.
This was.
Mr. Chairman,
yeah, go ahead.
I wasn't looking to have an engineer comment on it. Okay. My comment, as was pointed out by the vice chair, might have been inappropriate. But what I'm saying is, I see the difficulty of logistically getting this complete, standing precisely on your property line. Let them go ahead and try to achieve what's here in the engineer's report. I would have a certain concern that it takes place exactly as described, and I wish them luck doing it.
Yeah, I think I see your point. I think a lot of this is actually going to be, physically hand grading, and it's the means and methods are up to them. But certainly, as Joel points out, at the end of the day, it must conform to this engineering work, and also the decks and everything else must conform to exactly what's been approved. So the means and methods here are left up to the applicants. But I see where you're going, Ed, but I have faith that they can do it, and they have to do it, or it won't get approved. It won't get a C of O.
And I have faith also.
Yeah, and Terry does. Okay. Anything else, Ed? Any other comments? I don't want to cut you off. Okay. Okay, let's go. Let's go to the planning department. Tyler, if you please.
Good evening, Tyler Borsak again for the planning department. I don't have much else to add. If there is some concern about encroaching on the neighboring property, there is a fence back there on the southern property line, so they'd have to do some damage to that fencing in order to even try and encroach onto that southern property, if that's what the concern was. But yeah, the plan was done in conjunction with the town engineer at the Rayner Group. Helped out with that. So I would imagine that maybe the language of the letter and the way it ended up being drawn out are in the same vein as one another, even if they're not exactly word for word exact same thing. But it's got the same idea essentially.
Thank you, Tyler. Any questions for Tyler, board members?
I mean, are we going to get a final confirmation or a sign off that this was done in accordance with the drawings? And who does that? So I think that might be our concern.
Roy, I think that's the planning department checks that out when they recommend it for the C of O.
Great.
So that's, I mean, our checks and balances are normal procedure are to do that, but there had to be a modification in this in order to give them the ability to do this work, get a building permit to do this work so that they can comply with the engineer's report.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy Lynn. Okay, let's move on to the public. LTV, do we have anyone in the waiting room?
No,
on this hearing?
No, Chair. There are no crawlers on hold for this.
Okay. Terry, would you like to close this out, please?
Yes. So for 39 Hoppin LLC at 39 Hoppin Avenue in Montauk, tax map 300-031-02-02, make a motion to close the public hearing and leave the written record open until the next meeting after the transcript posts?
Yes, because this is a rehearing. That's correct.
Okay. All right.
Thank you. Good night, guys.
Okay.
Thanks, Joe. And thank you, Tyler.
Anybody seconding this?
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea.
I'll second.
I concur.
I concur.
And I concur as well. Thank you all. Okay, we'll move on to our final public hearing this evening. We have 376 Bleecker Street as the applicant, and the lot size and location is 40,000 square feet, total at 78 Seaside Avenue, Seaside Shores, lots 5 and 6, and block 601, Montauk, tax map number 300-32-7-23.1. And the description: to demolish a one-story residence and construct a 2,693 square foot two-story residence, swimming pool, and approximately 602 square feet of first-story decking, roof deck, and 168 square feet of shed on a parcel of land containing freshwater wetlands. The release sought here is a natural resources special permit pursuant to 255-4-20 and variances from 255-4-40 minimum wetland setbacks of the town code and any other relief necessary. The following wetland setback variances are required: 1, 2, and 3 variances of 49.3 feet, 16 feet, and 49.6 feet are required to construct the residence swimming pool with terrace and shed. 50 foot 7 inches or 50.7 feet, 84 feet, and 50.4 feet respectively from the wetlands, where a 100-foot setback is required. 4, a 66-foot variance is required to install the sanitary system. 84 feet from the wetlands, where a 150-foot setback is required, and a 29-foot variance is required to allow land clearing 21 feet from wetlands, where a 50-foot setback is required. This is in a B residence zoning district. The flood zone is X. The secret class is type 2. And council, do we have a proper affidavit of service and posting?
If you'll recall,
Yes.
Chair, this one didn't require reposting. But
Exactly.
we do need to get, we have our Zoom link with Mr. Warren, but we also have the applicant's agent is on the telephone. So if we can unmute her, Tiffany Scarlatta, so that they can both present at this point.
Yes, Chair, this is Mike at LTV. I'll unmute that caller right now.
Sure. I hope she was able to hear well.
Tiffany Scarlato. Thank you. Tiffany Scarlato, 45 Division, for Burke and Sullivan, actually, 41 Meeting House Lane, Southampton, for the applicant. Thank you.
Okay, good evening, Tiffany. Are you going to start off here? I see we have Rich Warren as well and Michael Shiano,
I
who's
believe
starting
Rich
off
Warren
here.
is going to give this evening's presentation.
Okay, Rich,
Warren
I
will
will
be
go
starting.
ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will go ahead. Good evening, Richard. I will go ahead and swear you in. If you raise your right hand, please. Do you swear and affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Thank you, Richard. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. As you recall, we were back before you for our first hearing on August 24th, and we received a number of comments from the board relative to the project. We had went back to the drawing boards after that meeting. We spent the past 2 months looking at it, and we've eliminated the swimming pool that was originally proposed that was within the decking. The 168 square foot storage shed that was located in the driveway area was eliminated. Because of the slopes and the grades that are required for the sanitary system, we went back with Maresca Associates and redesigned the sanitary system, shifting the treatment tank to the south of the residence and also shifted the leaching pool further south. The grading plane was tightened up so it no longer extends quite as far to the north into those sloped areas. The house plans were revised, and when we were here before, there was discussion on the part of the board that the house was too large. The GFA on the house was reduced from 2693 to below 2400 with the revised plan. The second floor plan was redesigned, and the master bedroom, which is the northern part of the house, was pulled back. And there's in this plan that you're looking at, there is a small deck on the seaward side that also helped alleviate some of the concerns that the board had relative to the pyramid law. The bamboo removal that was in the plan originally has been eliminated at the request of the planning department. If the client wants to pursue that, that would happen at a later date. The proposed planting plan done by LaGuardia Associates has been adjusted slightly to ensure that the species that are proposed fall within the planting guidelines. There's no basement or crawl space here. So we submitted to you revised architectural plans, landscape plan, a sanitary plan for this. We do not have the survey yet. The Walbridge surveyors are working on that. We will have that to you as soon as it's completed. Importantly, on Friday, Tiffany and I had the opportunity to have a Zoom meeting with Frank, which was quite helpful. Because he has some continuing concerns about the project. So we went through those with him in order to move this project along. He asked for the landscape plan to be further revised. There are areas that are behind the house and to the north of the house that the original plan had shown herbaceous plantings. He requested that those herbaceous planting areas be changed so that they are woody vegetation, things like chokeberry, arrowwood, viburnum, and bayberry. We've spoken with the landscape architect, and they are going to do that. The herbaceous plantings would be actually infill underneath the shrubby vegetation that's proposed. He asked that a construction methodology. He asked about the methodology for the removal of the sheds. You can see there's a couple of sheds that are within the area closest to the wetlands, and one is actually within the wetlands. And he was concerned that there might be equipment required to remove those. We agreed that we will advise the board that they'll be demolished and removed by hand with no equipment needed to do that. He suggested that we provide a conservation easement on the western side of the property. You've got the wetlands that are there, and he suggested a 40-foot setback to the wetlands for a conservation easement. We've spoken with the client in reference to that, and they have no concerns relative to that. So we would provide that, coming back to you. He suggested a construction protocol. I know that was, we discussed that at the meeting last time. We've engaged the Rayner Group to prepare a construction protocol for this because it is a tight site and there is some excavation required for the sanitary. So we'll have that for you as soon as we can get it completed. In looking at the plan, as you can see right here on this drawing, the architect had prepared drawings that then got circulated to the sanitary engineer and also to the landscape architect. And you can see here that kind of the greenish color that's shown for the house actually doesn't represent the footprint of the house. What that is actually the roof plan. And unfortunately got carried over, just transposed over in the other plans by the other professionals here. Actually in error. We will clarify that, but we're going to talk about the house in a moment. So he asked us to clarify that, which we will do. Most importantly, Brian advised of his concern that the reduction in the house, which we brought down from 2693 to just under 2400, didn't show a reduction in the footprint of the improvements. So what we did is, when we were at the meeting in August, we heard a lot of concerns. And in the moment of the meeting, we actually did not hear his comment. I went back and listened to the 24th hearing this afternoon. And in fact, he did mention that he thought that the footprint of the improvement should be made somewhat smaller. So upon hearing the comments again at our meeting on Friday, I spoke with the architect and on Friday afternoon, and he has worked through the weekend and has done some adjustments to the plan. They were sent to the client. The client is actually overseas right now, but they were able to see them. And we have an adjusted plan for the house that if you would like to see, we can put up, if you'd share the screen, we could put up the revised plans if you'd like that, or we can submit them however you'd like to do that. But we have developed a plan that compacts the house, which is what Brian asked us to do. If the house is now more rectangular, it's no longer C-shaped like you see in this drawing. So one floor sits above the other. the original plan that you saw before had some cathedral space on the first floor that actually pushed the floor plan out. That has been eliminated. So it is more compact, and it pulls the north and east corner of the house down closer. So
Richard, let me interrupt if I may. I think it would be helpful if you shared, if you took over the screen and pulled that up, if you have it available, please.
Okay, so if you can give us permission.
Sure.
I have Mike Shiano here to do that because he's more technically inclined than I am.
Sure.
I should put the other one on, the side by side. So these are the drawings. The one on the left is the October submission that we made, and the one on the right is the revised plan. You can see that it's more square. They've put the plans in. Again, you see the roof plan here because that's where the architect has drawn it. But it's pulled it away from the setback on the side, and it's actually pulled it away from the northeast corner further. So it is more compact. This footprint for the square footage of this house is 2392 square feet gross floor area. The decks are smaller, and the swimming pool's been eliminated. So what this does is it reduces some of the concern that was in that northeast corner where the slopes are. And so we have the floor plans for these as well, which we can submit to you. We know that we have some work that we have to do to get back to you with these, but we have to get you the survey from Walbridge that has to be revised again for this. We were waiting for them to give us the survey for the last plan, but since this came up on Friday, that we've been able to quickly get this done by the architect so you could see it. And we have the construction methodology from Rayner Group. We have the landscape plan to show the woody vegetation, and then the revised house plans. So we'd ask, for some comment from the board. I know Brian will probably like to speak with reference to this, but we're trying to be responsive to the concerns that the board had raised before. We have tightened this project up. We think that the 2,392 square foot house on this property, not unreasonable, 2-story, it's pretty compact. When you see the floor plans, it's pretty compact.
Can you tell us quickly, Richard, please, what the difference in the first floor in the footprint of these two houses is in square footage, please? Including the decks, or if you don't have that, you can submit that.
Let me submit that. It's been so quick to get this. I don't have those numbers at my fingertips.
Okay. Yeah.
But I can provide that for you with this submission.
So maybe you can give us, when you do that, could you give us the footprint of the house and as well the footprint of the decks, so that we know what we have the differences from the previous to what you're proposing? Okay.
And I think what's important is that the house became more rectangular. So while the footprint may not have shrunk much, the house became square. So we don't have the C shape, which then caused it to push out. So the last iteration of the house was just under 2,400 square feet as well. The one on the left is just under 2,400 square feet. These are both smaller than the original submission, for which the original hearing was noticed. Right. But the October 8th submission was just under 2,400 square feet. This one's just under 2,400 square feet, but now it's more compact, which is what Brian had asked us to do.
Okay, thank you.
It's about 10 feet further from wetland.
Yeah, 10 feet further. Okay. Terry, you have a question?
Okay, I thought that Mr. Warren said it was 2392 GFA now?
Yes, 2392.
Okay, so in your October 8th submission, you say you reduced the GFA from 2693 to 2345.
Yes, and in the redesign,
up about 50?
It went up about 50 square feet in the squaring of things off and making staircases work and bathrooms work. But we're still below the 2,400, which was kind of the target of what we were asked to look at.
Okay, any other questions, board members? And again, we're going to be holding this open, obviously, for some more submissions, the written record.
Chair, do you want to, we also, since there's an awful lot of information, I have checked with our secretary. We do have room on November 16th to continue the hearing.
Yeah, I think that probably thank you for that, Nancy Lynn. I think that probably makes sense, because this way we can ask the applicants questions and that sort of thing. So personally, I would be in favor of that. But why don't we go on with the plan with Brian Frank, and then we can all circle back and talk about that. If you would. Brian, good evening. I will swear you in right away, Brian. If you please, Brian, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thanks. Good evening, Brian.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, board members. Let me start by thanking Rich Warren for a very accurate summary of our Zoom meeting on Friday. Basically, he hit all the points that we had discussed about the October 8th revision that was submitted to the board's file. If I could, well, we could leave up Inner Science's plan. That's fine. But we had discussed, first of all, this is a continuation from August. We had discussed the environmental sensitivity of Seaside Avenue in general, and the significance of the wetland, the visibility of the property. So I don't want to repeat any of that. It's part of the record. It's in the technical assessment memorandum. It was covered at the hearing. So I just really want to go forward with where the project is now, and what any remaining issues might be. It is worth noting that Seaside Avenue has a lot of wetlands. That it's a north-south oriented road. There are streams and wetlands probably on every property, really on both sides of the road, both the east and west side of Seaside Avenue. It's a real wet area. Many of the properties, if not all of them, have areas that are in natural resources jurisdiction. This property is improved right now with a 1,000 square foot house. It's located along the southern property line. It has roof overhangs that bring the building coverage, the roofed areas of the improvements at about 1,500 square feet. That may include the sheds that were built to the east of the west of the existing house that are not really legal. There's no building permit for them, but be that as it may, the October 8th revision brought the coverage down. I appreciate the fact that the surveyors are busy, and I'm sure the applicants tried to get a survey in with this package. The elimination of the shed that was proposed adjacent to the driveway reduces the coverage by 168 square feet, brings the proposed building coverage down to 1,337 square feet, which is not an unreasonable number. It was it's a bit of an optical illusion that it looks much bigger than that, but that does appear to be an accurate representation of the proposed coverage. As Rich mentioned, we had discussed the planning department's opinion and the importance of eliminating the swimming pool, not just because it was a poor candidate for a variance in and of itself, but its elimination would allow a more compact design. The planning department never really had much of an objection, or any objection really, to the square footage that was proposed, the neighborhood of 2,400. That goes back to discussions that I had with Inner Science prior to the submission of the application. But it was the configuration, and you see that Inner Science is submitting a revision to address that issue in what you see on the screen here. I do think one of the biggest issues remaining, perhaps even it might even, I don't want to say the only issue, but I do think the most significant issue remaining is the amount of fill that's necessary on the east side of the property. I don't know if Mike could zoom in a little bit more, but if he can, what you'll see, excuse me, I'm going to mute myself while I call. My apologies. But what you'll see in the area of the proposed contour west of the house is that 40-foot contour line and that 39-foot contour line cross an area that right now is about 35 feet above sea level. That's a 5 vertical foot increase in the elevation of the property. As I mentioned, there are the environmental conditions on this property don't appear to be unique to Seaside Avenue. Many of the properties have the same poorly drained soils, wetlands, also sometimes both east and west of the existing improvements. I'm not aware of another sanitary design for a new residence or a redevelopment on Seaside Avenue that necessitated this volume of fill in the past. Right up the road, you have property under construction right now at 26 Seaside. That's not very far away. Anybody could look at the elevations on the county GIS. You won't see a significant difference in the elevations of the property there. The adoption of the IA sanitary standards allow more flexibility in the past. The old health department regulations really, more often than not, limited leaching fields to the conventional round drainage rings and similar leaching galleys under most circumstances. So the IA regulations allow greater flexibility of design on these engineered systems than in the past, and the presence of that fill still remains puzzling. I have nothing but respect for Maresca's engineering firm. I'm sure there's a reason for it. I just want to point out that we haven't seen this before on similar constrained properties, and it's not a small amount. One thing that Rich covered a lot of ground in the few minutes that he spoke, but it's also worth pointing out that the volume of fill that's been proposed for the area of the sanitary system has been reduced by about half. Down in the neighborhood of 200 and 230 cubic yards, but that's still a substantial amount of fill, and there's still a substantial grade change that's proposed to the west of the property. Obviously, the western portion of the property slopes down pretty significantly to Seaside Avenue. This is at the southern end of Seaside Avenue. I could bring up the aerial either that shows the immediate neighborhood or a close-up of this property at the board's request, or any of member Johan's field photos if that's requested. And that remains, I think, one of the more significant elements of the application. I don't want to belabor the points that Rich already addressed. I will mention, I do think that the eastern portion of the property is a great candidate for a scenic easement. 40-foot is probably a 40-foot easement boundary from the upland edge of the wetland is probably the maximum practicable buffer that you could put into a scenic easement on here. And I commend the applicants for agreeing with that, as well as replacing the bracken fern and the grasses in the revegetation plan with woody vegetation. And just to get it on the record, the main reason for that is herbaceous vegetation doesn't persist well in the presence of invasive species. I can tell you from my experience, when I did the wetland flagging, I think it was in 2016, the sheds to the west of the property were pretty visible from the back of the house. They are completely swallowed up right now. And one of the concerns with herbaceous vegetation in revegetations is they will get displaced by invasives. There's a big problem with, I think it's Chinese privet, but a very aggressive variety of privet is a real scourge in the moorlands of Montauk. And if the revegetation was going to consist of bracken fern or grasses, then I think there's a good chance they would get swallowed up by privets, by honeysuckles, by some of the more aggressive invasives that we have. And using the species that we discussed on Friday gives more substantial vegetation a fighting chance to persist beyond the issuance of a certificate of occupancy, which is the goal of these revegetations, to establish a buffer that can be left alone and serve as a natural area to protect the wetland, to provide habitat, to provide some of the other benefits, prevention of soil erosion that we look for in wetland buffers. Rich also addressed the submission of a construction protocol. It sounds like the demo of the sheds will be pretty simple, but I do think it benefits everybody, including the applicant, to get that protocol in the file. But the installation of a sandwick here is fairly invasive. It does involve the use of cutting rings, which requires the excavation from within that ring. The cutting rings form almost like an exoskeleton that holds a shaft in place, so heavy soils don't collapse in and need to be kind of dug in the shape of a crater. That unsuitable material has to be removed from the excavation, trucked off site, and replaced with clean sand, clean fill to meet health department standards. And we have seen smaller construction projects in this area go south and go awry, that both delay the applicant, create significant cost overruns for the applicant, don't provide the level of protection that the board had anticipated in their permit, and often require modifications that takes the board time as well. So it's when these projects go sideways, it's kind of a lose-lose for everybody. And anything that we can do to prevent that should be encouraged. At the end of the day, these jobs really only go as well as the people that are on site and know what the permit conditions are, and you can it helps to give them the best tools to do that, to be successful with a project like this or similar. It is important to point out also that you are almost certainly going to see more redevelopments on Seaside Avenue. There are a few vacant properties left. Redevelopment of improved properties is a trend that we've seen throughout the South Fork for at least a decade, arguably longer. But the point is, you can certainly expect more of the older homes to come to this board, to be replaced with newer houses, larger when possible, more energy efficient, certainly across the board. So what the board does on this property matters. It matters beyond just the scope of this address, but there are similarly constrained properties on both sides of the street, up and down Seaside and over to Miller, similar lot sizes and constraints. So what the board does with this property matters beyond these lot lines. I think that kind of summarizes everything that I wanted to share with the board this evening. And if there's any resource that I can bring up on my screen, please ask. If there are any questions that any of the members have, please ask.
Mr. Chair,
Brian? I was muted, yeah.
Okay.
I just wanted to jump in, if I may. And this is more to Rich, and InterScience, and to Steve Maresca. What my concern, and thank you, Brian, for all of that. My concern as well has to do with all of this grading, and I know there's a lot of concern among neighbors with regard to that as well. So since you are making some resubmissions, what I would like to see is from the engineer some sort of an analysis or sketching showing that that this is, for one thing, that this system is the best system, or is a galley system a better system here? That's part A of my request, an analysis of which system would allow for the least amount of fill. And as well, I would like to see a diagram showing that the required 5% grade for the sanitary system, the 5% slope going for 20 feet, show that diagram and show that this what fill is required to meet that diagram. Personally, my gut instinct is that this plateau at this grade here is larger. That one right there, exactly. Thank you. Is larger than it has to be. But I'm not the engineer here, so I would like to see a diagram that shows what is the least amount of fill that has to be brought in to work with the best system, whether that is a galley system, just picking up on Brian's comments about the new IA system. So right away, that's my first concern and my first request for the next submissions. And Terry or Ed, and from Montauk, any?
Well, I just wanted to make sure I heard Brian's comment when he began about the runoff. Did you say that runoff occurs all along Seaside Avenue? It is not limited to this property? The runoff onto the road? Because I know some of the neighbors were concerned and submitted letters and information on that.
Well, I don't remember saying that, but there is.
Okay, maybe I didn't hear you right.
But let's put it out there. Seaside doesn't just have a lot of wetlands; it's got real active hydrology. It's got some of the most substantial permanent water courses in town. They carry a lot of water south from the watershed starts north of Montauk Highway, and it flows all the way south along Seaside. It is culverted beneath driveways in some of the older development. A lot of this development does predate modern environmental regulations. There's no doubt that wetlands have been rerouted and filled. I've seen some old infrastructure, I don't even really know how to accurately characterize it, but there's corrugated metal culverts underneath Seaside Avenue connecting some of these wetlands. Some properties have bridges. In addition to just having poor soils, it is a real hydrologically active area. So even though I don't think at least I don't recall saying that in the beginning of my presentation, it is fair to characterize these properties as having a significant amount of runoff. Even though, believe it or not, I'm sure you do, you've been down there a lot, many of the driveways are not paved, but when you drive on fine materials and compact it down, it still has a high runoff coefficient. So today is not a typical day. I think we've gotten 3 inches of precipitation today, but seeing road flooding on Seaside Avenue after wet periods, even normal wet periods, is pretty common.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to pick up on that again, just a little further, if you don't mind, Brian. And that is that we did get quite a bit of response from the community, local neighbors feeling that the development leads to flooding that may or may not be directly responsive to an individual house or two. But what is your feeling about that, the impact that this project would have on additional flooding? I mean, I see a dry well in the parking area. You feel that what we're looking at here is sufficient? I realize you're not an engineer, but I'm saying in sort of an empirical observation here. Is this the kind of thing that we're really adding a great deal to the problem, or is it a fairly established problem along Seaside that we really can't do much to control?
Well, I don't think you can control all of it. There is. There is a slope. There's a big elevation difference between where the existing and proposed house is, where any new house would be on this property, and the elevation of Seaside Avenue. And this is at the southern end of Seaside Avenue, where you do have it flatten out and kind of have the junction with Miller not far away. So anytime you have a slope and poorly drained soils, there's a challenge there in capturing all of that runoff, but it does make the placement of this fill or the application of fill on this property that much more important to make sure that it's avoided to the fullest extent possible. Because bringing fill in and creating steeper slopes in an area where you already have steep slopes will definitely exacerbate the drainage. The dry wells have been sized to capture the roof runoff, and there's no reason to suspect that they're inadequate. There are dry wells. I don't think they show up on this design, but I have what I had up on my screen before. There are 2 dry wells proposed beneath the new driveway to capture the driveway from the parking area. So you're going to attenuate some of the runoff produced by the new property, but you still have steep slopes and very poorly drained soils with a high silt and clay content, and that's just part of the conditions of this area. But it does make that fill a greater concern than it might be on another property.
But the proposed 40-foot easement pretty much ensures that the runoff will be coming down the driveway, other than what naturally would happen due to the construction here. It's just really a driveway runoff that will make its way down onto Seaside. Is that not right? Do you think that or not?
Yeah, this house actually sits on the high point on the property.
Yeah.
So it falls off going west, and then it falls off going east.
Yeah.
So I think that in all of the activities on, heading towards the east, so I'm not sure there's any drainage issues going to the west. Then we have drainage control for the house. So all the roof runoff is being collected for the house, and we have drainage control in the driveway.
Yeah.
The easement really provides protection from the wetland to the west. That's those wetlands are contiguous to Shadmore State Park. There's also a contiguity with the properties to the north and south. It really provides a good habitat corridor and helps protect those wetlands. The issue to the west really is what's going to capture that runoff that I would expect would be created by that fill slope. Even though that fill is going to consist of more granular material than what's there now, these soils still get saturated. The stuff underneath it still gets overwhelmed. So over time, you will have some contribution from that material towards Seaside Avenue.
Brian, let me just say, I was mistaken when I said about easement. I shouldn't have said easement, and I realize that's to the west. I was just talking about this vegetated area that's alongside the driveway. That vegetated area provides something of a buffer for waters coming down. Is that right? I mean, that's what I'm going to guess here. That's large.
The vegetated area does, yes.
Yeah. So then we're really talking about the driveway, and the dry well in the driveway is an effort to mitigate some of that runoff. The 2 dry wells. I'm looking at the one here. Yeah. Okay. My reason to bring this up and to beat it up a little bit is just because there is great concern by neighbors, and this comes up a lot, and we've gotten quite an interesting amount of material submitted, and some of it it's very accurate in terms of what they're seeing. I just wanted to try to ascertain exactly what we're thinking any one lot is and how it's impacting the driveway, how it's impacting Seaside Avenue. But
yeah, thank you, Ed. And again, Rich, what I'm looking for is if fill was gold and you were trying to use as least amount as possible. That's the diagram I'm trying to see, because again, it looks like this is more of an architectural plateau type thing here. Maybe I'm wrong, but just so we're clear, I'm trying to see what is legally the least amount of fill that you can use for the best sanitary system, so I'm clear, okay?
Sure. I can tell you that this sanitary system that's designed here, we had, at the last hearing, we had presented, we had ready for presentation for you different designs with galley systems, et cetera. And this is the system that designs the least amount of fill required, and it was further adjusted to pull it back. And it was actually the top of the system was actually lowered a little bit so that this way we could further reduce some of that grading. The expansion pool, which is the right there.
Yes.
The contour, the 40-foot contour is exactly 20 feet from the edge of that expansion pool. That's the limitation from the health department, according to the engineers. There's no architectural design relative to the sanitary system. This is all about, health department approval. So this is the minimum amount.
Really? Yeah. Is it 20 feet? It's okay.
It's 20 feet. It's exactly.
But again, you are allowed to go at a 5% grade. So anyway, okay. Just so we're clear, so we can see that in cross section and diagram.
Yeah, I would have the engineer speak to that. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. I have no further questions. Any other questions, board members?
No.
We will have another chance to discuss this if we all agree to make this a continuation. Let's talk about that before we go to the public. Do we all agree that we may want to do that, board members?
Yeah.
I do.
I do, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I have a comment about that. Because from a matter of protocol, we had this will be now the third hearing we have in this matter.
Yeah.
The first hearing, it was clear that this application was not up to the liking and standard of the planning department. The second hearing now, we have what I would consider to be a very incomplete submission.
Yeah.
And now we're kicking the can to the third time.
Yeah.
And from my perspective, we hold applicants to a higher standard. They have a burden to prove their application, if you will, when they come to a hearing. And I'm just very concerned about the precedent that we're setting here by allowing this application to just linger and the amount of time that we have to invest in this particular application. So personally speaking, I guess we don't have any choice but to continue. But I will be absolutely against any further continuation of this. I would expect a complete and a very brief presentation that's able to put a bow on this for us at the next time we're together.
Tim, I really appreciate those. Let me just say this. I very much appreciate you saying that, Tim, because it is a fine line. I was picking up on Nancy Lynn's comments with all the information, but it is, I am nervous about the precedent that's happening here. And again, tonight we spent 40 minutes on the second hearing. So I completely agree with you that I expect the applicants to have all of your ducks in a row, because we're not going to continue. This is, I hate to say it's kind of getting like the village tends to go, where they just keep changing and changing, going week after week after week. And again, we don't like to do, let's make a deal here. That's not the way this board works. So I appreciate Tim's comments, and this would certainly be the last of these, and no extensions as far as I'm concerned.
I would just say on behalf of the applicant, with all due respect, we're trying to be responsive to the issues that the Zoning Board of Appeals raised. And in order to get to the submission back to you that was made, that was the subject of this hearing, it took a lot of work to get the sanitary redesign, get the other people to reconfigure. And then we had a meeting with Brian Frank only 4 days ago, Friday of last week, when we received comments, and we're trying to be responsive. So I think the process actually is working, where the town raises concerns and we try to address it. So I don't feel that it should be seen as the applicant is trying to do something untoward. We're trying to respond to concerns we've received. So I
will just reiterate, I don't think it's fair to the applicants that are waiting for their applications to be heard, that we continue to fill up meetings with rehearing your same application.
Yes. Yeah, I completely agree. This would have been the hearing that you would get us your submission, and then it's up to us to make our decisions. But again, as it seems like the majority board, and Tim is maybe up for this one time, but I think Tim's point is well taken, and I'm sure you understand it, Rich, as well.
And we'd like to get it closed as well.
Yeah, yeah, because it's not how we're going to be doing things in the future, or nor have we in the past. LTV, do we have anyone? Go ahead, Nancy Lynn.
I just want to let you know, we do have callers on the line.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, LTV, you want to give us the first caller, please?
Sure, John. Yes, Chair. I have a caller whose last 4 digits end in 2811. I'll unmute now. One moment.
Oh, hello, this is Randy Goy. I'm the architect. I was just on hold in case there were any questions that were directed to me. So,
okay.
This is Randy Goy. I'm the architect.
Okay, thank you. You can hang. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Could you go to the next caller, LTV?
Yes, Chair. I muted him. There was a little bit of an echo. Moving on, I
Yeah.
see a caller with the last 4 digits ending in 7133. And if this caller, before I unmute, could kindly mute the feed in their home or office. I'll unmute that caller now.
Hello?
Hello, could you
Yes.
please state your
Can you hear
name?
me? Sure. John Alters.
Okay, John, good evening. Please give us your address and let us know if you're an attorney or not. Otherwise, I will swear you in, please.
Okay, 22 Miller Ave, and no, I'm not an attorney.
Okay, and how do you spell your last name, please?
Alters.
Okay, good evening. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Okay, just a few points. I was one of the neighbors who submitted a letter, and I'm concerned that this company made a submission before the Friday cutoff, and that we're just now looking at this, and it's kind of confusing. But more importantly, as year-round residents, the runoff doesn't just happen on rainy days. Shadmore Park is elevated from Seaside, and a lot of water comes down from there, and this water that you see could be dripping down or coming down the streams for weeks at a time when the snow is melting. And we wanted to submit some video so you can see how much water is actually running on the side of all our properties, because it's really no joke. I mean, you can take like a toy boat and watch it run down and into the culverts and into the various streams. So we're concerned when we hear terms like revegetation, because what happens if there's plantings done and they're not successful, like it doesn't work properly, and you can see by the pictures that we submitted that there's a lot of water coming down the south side of their house, and we'd like to know if they're going to do anything to mitigate the current circumstance before they go ahead and do any new construction or demolition on the house that's already there.
Well, thank you. You can, as you've been listening, you can tell that this board takes that very seriously. And we appreciate your submissions, and we've looked at them, and we will be considering all the revegetation and the proposed dry wells. So we are focused on this as much as you are. Okay. And thank you for calling in.
One last thing, please.
Yeah.
We actually feel like because of how fragile the wetlands are here, that unless there's an absolute need for any variances that cut into the wetlands, unless there's an absolute need or necessity, we're thinking that that we should just tap the brakes and really understand what that could possibly do to the neighborhood.
Okay, well, thank you for calling again. Obviously, we take all of that into consideration. That's what we're here for. So thank you for your call. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Michael at LTV, the next caller, please.
Yes, the next caller's last 4 digits of their phone in an 8437. I'll unmute that caller now.
Okay, my name is John Pompey. I live on 29 Miller Avenue, which is the corner of Miller and Seaside. I live directly across the street from this property that's being considered.
Okay, thank you. Are you an attorney?
No.
Okay, I'll swear you in then. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Well, first of all, I'm not opposed to the house there. I have no opposition to that at all. The only thing I'm commenting on is the concern about this water runoff. The fact of the matter is that Seaside Avenue and Miller Avenue are both unowned dirt roads that are not maintained, and it seems like the runoff it can't really be controlled from this property, but this property is not the only concern on these streets. There is it is basically unpassable roads which are in certain times of the year, emergency vehicles cannot reach houses on this road. So I think this issue about the runoff from this property is a concern, but it's more of a larger concern, and I don't think I don't know what the solution is to this. There is no real there is no drainage on these roads. Water comes off this hill, it puddles, it makes potholes, and these roads are basically unpassable half the year.
Yeah,
That's my
okay.
comment.
Well, thank you very much. And again, as I said to the previous caller, we are analyzing this application, this site very specifically. I think we all agree with you, and Brian Frank does as well, that there are much bigger issues that are more of town-wide, town board and highway superintendent issues. And I think we all understand that. And certainly maybe you have been contacting the board or the highway superintendent or the town board first. But basically, yes, they are bigger issues, but we are certainly looking very closely at this application and what this application may or may not contribute to that problem. Okay. So thank you very much for calling in. We appreciate it. Next caller, Michael from LTV.
Chair, there are no other callers at this time.
Okay. Thank you. Let's see. I apologize. This, Terry, did Ed had this, right? Ed in the beginning?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This was mine, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, please. Yeah. If you want to, I guess we're not closing it out. We're making the
Well,
motion.
let's first, if we can ask the applicant's agent if November 16th works for them, just so that we aren't putting ourselves in a position to require another notice.
Right.
Is that enough time?
That November. I defer to Rich on that question, but I believe it should be enough time. Rich?
We can probably get all the plans back to you. We will not have the construction protocol, and the construction protocol is not just for the shed removal, it's for the entire project. So we can have that submitted following that if that's okay.
Would it be better to pick a date we also have a hearing date in December? Would that be just so that we don't have anything outstanding?
Yeah, I think we should do that. If we're going to do it, I think we want to have all of the information. And that's
okay.
Or can you tell us the hearing date that might be available in December?
December 7th or the 21st?
No.
21st. No.
Exactly.
It's the 7th. I don't think we have it on the 21st.
That was the 14th.
No, that was November 14th. We're talking about December, Rich?
Public hearing the 7th and the 21st I have.
Okay, we must have work session on the 14th then.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, okay, so that's what the issue is. So we have December 7th or December 21st as possible dates.
So let's do December 7th.
Okay.
That's fine.
So, council, am I making a motion to adjourn this hearing until December 7th?
Yes, you are.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, please do it.
Okay. In the matter of 376 Bleecker Street, 78 Seaside Avenue, Montauk, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-032-07-23.1, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn this hearing until December 7th, when it will be reopened.
Second that.
I concur.
I concur.
I concur. Okay. Thank you all. Brian, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Rich, Michael,
Thank you.
Tiffany. Okay. Have a good evening, you all.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Okay,
everyone.
we'll move.
Good night.
Good night. Okay, we'll move on. Next, we have going into item number 4, work session. Under E, building permit certificate of occupancy, we have Jeffrey Locker at 320 Cranberry Hole Road, Narragansett, tax map number 300-128-1-19.4. And Brian, would you mind walking us through this, please?
Not at all, Mr. Chairman. Just give me a moment to, I must have closed it. I could have sworn I had it open. I apologize. But this property was approved in, this was a vacant lot on Cranberry Hole Road. It was approved for a new residence, detached garage, swimming pool, sanitary system. Looking for the approved survey. This is it, I believe. Again, apologize for the delay there, board members. So this was what was approved back in 2015. The property is located on the south side of Cranberry Hole Road. There was a driveway that went its way over to the western portion of the property from a common driveway in the eastern portion of the property, detached garage, residence, sanitary system, and swimming pool that was approved as close as just a little over 10 feet from the scenic easement to the south. The improvements were constructed. We had a certificate of occupancy request for that came to the board back in April. I had inspected it in April. Most of the vegetation is exemplary. There is some ornamental vegetation up around the house. But of more concern, and there are some other differences in the as-built coverages. They went up a little bit. I kind of think those are nominal and would be consistent for a modification if that were the case. But the real issue here is that the as-built construction came out less than 10 feet from the scenic easement to the south. So the property doesn't appear to be eligible for a certificate of occupancy based on its as-built conditions. And they really have the option of either redoing those improvements in the south to eliminate any new variants from the scenic easement and then pursue a modification for the other changes which may be acceptable to the board, or make an application for variance. I wrote that up to you about a month ago. I've shared a copy of that with Mr. Locker and informed him that it doesn't look like his property is eligible for a CO right now. But that official determination needs to come most appropriately from the board. If everything was compliant with the board's determination, we typically share that information with the building department and copy the board's file on it. But in this case, it's probably more appropriate if they're not eligible for a CO that opinion by the planning department is concurred with by the board.
Thank you, Brian. Okay, so this is in Miami-Gansett District, and I agree with your analysis, and thank you for that. I think this either has to come back to us as a variance, or the hot tub or something has to be moved, whatever is not conforming to the scenic easement, as approved, and as a modification. I'm not sure about the other coverages, but council, would we be drafting a letter on this, or can we simply allow Brian to draft?
Brian can pass that on, or we could do a letter for your signature. Either way, but simply letting them know that it's not acceptable as is, that the board has found that it's not acceptable as is, and would require either to be brought into compliance with the original approval, or a request for a modification to be considered by this board.
Right, or a variance application submitted.
Right, they would have to do a whole new variance application.
I'm fine with Brian drafting that letter, and they certainly can also watch this discussion. Board members, are you all okay with that?
Yes, I agree.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm good with it.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Nancy Lynn. We'll move on to resolutions. Let's see, do we have the minutes? I'm not sure, Laura. Were the minutes posted?
They're out there. Yes.
Yes. Okay. I will abstain. I didn't get a chance to look at those, but Terry, can we have a motion? For the minutes?
Yeah, I read them. They look good to me. So can the rest of you vote on them if you didn't read them?
I did not know they were out there, so I didn't look at them either.
Why don't we just table that to next week then? Okay.
We're not meeting next week.
We're not meeting.
Oh,
We're not meeting next week?
Yeah.
No.
There's
no election day, so
Right.
we can't have a meeting.
Well,
Do we have a quorum?
You trust me, I make a motion to approve them.
They
We should
can
probably
be
table them.
on that motion.
I think we should just, unless we have,
Okay.
Council, there's no
I
problem.
mean, they can
tabling
wait
it.
2 weeks as well.
They
You
can
can
wait 2
table
weeks.
them.
Yeah, I think we should.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Table it.
Table them to November.
Yeah. I think it wasn't written quite as it normally is on the agenda. But I should have been looking anyway. Nonetheless, let's move on to resolutions. We have Robert Savage at 115 Waters Edge Road in Springs, tax map number 300-83-7-3. And I know Tim pinch hit it. Who wants to handle this? Roy, do you want to handle this?
Mine. Yeah, I'll be happy to handle this.
Sure, thanks.
And if you will, same with Simpkins, Mr. Chairman. I can handle these both at the same time. They're similar in nature.
Sure.
Having to do with allowing the addition of jute matting and core logs.
Yeah,
and
please do.
Revegetation of the bluff and beach grass.
Mhm.
So therefore, I make a motion to accept the resolution amending determination for Neil Simpkins, Suffolk tax map number 300-83-7-52.1.
As written.
As written. Sorry.
That's all right.
Second
again. And then I make a motion to accept the resolution amending determination as written for Robert Savage, Suffolk tax map number 300-83-7-3.
And I'll also second that.
Yeah,
Thanks.
make the minutes easier. I'll concur on both.
I concur on both as well, if that's okay, Council.
That's fine.
Great. Thank you, Roy. And thank you, board members. Let's see. Council, anything else from you?
I have nothing further.
Excellent. I think, Roy, we just need one more motion from you, if you please.
Sure, Mr. Chairman. I therefore make a motion to close the public hearing and the work session for the Town of East Hampton Zoning Board of Appeals for Tuesday, October 26th at 8:59 p.m.
Second.
I concur.
And I concur as well. Thank you all. And thank you for the planners.